Picture this. It's Christmas morning. The smell of cinnamon and pine fills the air. Colorful lights twinkle on a beautifully decorated tree. Children unwrap presents beneath its branches, their faces glowing with joy. It's the most wonderful time of the year, right? But what if I told you that this same tree was once surrounded by animal sacrifices? That the jolly man in red has a demonic companion who drags children to hell? That the hearts on your Valentine's cards represent fertility rituals involving blood-soaked animal hides and public whippings? Welcome to the dark history of holiday traditions. I'm taking you on a journey through time to uncover the sinister, bizarre, and often terrifying origins of the holidays we celebrate today. From ancient Celtic priests burning animals alive, to Roman festivals where naked men ran through the streets whipping women for fertility, to Babylonian kings being ritually humiliated to appease angry gods. The holidays you know and love. They're built on a foundation of blood, sacrifice, and supernatural terror. So grab your hot chocolate, turn off the lights, and prepare to never look at your Christmas tree the same way again. Let's start with the big one, Christmas. Today, December 25th, is a day of peace, goodwill, and celebration. We decorate evergreen trees with ornaments and lights. We hang stockings by the fireplace. We exchange gifts. Santa Claus brings presents to good children while they sleep. It's a holiday about light, love, and the birth of hope into the world. But strip away 2,000 years of Christian overlay, and you'll find something much darker lurking beneath. Long before Christianity reached Northern Europe, the winter solstice was a time of dread. The sun was dying. Each day grew shorter, colder, darker. Ancient peoples believed that without intervention, the sun might never return. Winter could last forever, and so they made bargains with their gods. The ancient Celts and Germanic tribes celebrated Yule, a 12-day festival marking the winter solstice. In the darkest, coldest nights of the year, they lit massive bonfires, not for warmth or celebration, but for survival. These fires were meant to give strength to the dying sun, to coax it back to life. But fire alone wasn't enough. They needed blood. Animals, particularly pigs and goats, were sacrificed to the gods. Their blood was sprinkled on sacred trees in the forest. Their bones were thrown into a shared fire, a ritual we might recognize today as the origin of the bonfire. In Scandinavia, the Sami people believed in Bewe, the sun goddess who rode a sleigh made of reindeer bones and was pulled by white reindeer. Sound familiar? This imagery of a winter figure flying through the sky in a reindeer-pulled sleigh predates Santa Claus by thousands of years. But the most disturbing element? The evidence of human sacrifice. While scholars debate the extent of the practice, archaeological evidence from Celtic and Germanic sites suggests that during particularly harsh winters or times of crisis, human sacrifices may have been offered to ensure the sun's return. The bog bodies, found throughout Northern Europe, preserved corpses showing signs of ritual killing, tell a grim story of desperate times requiring desperate measures. Now, about that Christmas tree standing in your living room. The practice of decorating evergreen trees has its roots in pagan tree worship. Evergreens were sacred because they defied death, remaining green when all other plants died in winter. They were seen as homes for forest spirits and nature gods. The ancient Romans decorated their homes with evergreen branches during Saturnalia, their week-long winter festival. The Celts and Germanic peoples venerated sacred groves, where particular trees were believed to house powerful spirits. Animal sacrifices weren't just made anywhere, they were made at the base of these sacred trees. Blood was poured onto roots. Entrails were hung from branches as offerings. The tree became an altar, soaked in death even as it symbolized eternal life. When Christianity spread through Europe, missionaries were faced with a problem. These tree-worshipping practices were deeply ingrained in the culture. So rather than eliminate them entirely, they baptized them. The pagan tree became the Christmas tree. The blood offerings became decorative ornaments. The supernatural spirits became angels. The modern Christmas tree, with its twinkling lights and wrapped gifts beneath, is the domesticated descendant of an altar of sacrifice. But here's where things get truly dark. While children today wait eagerly for Santa Claus to bring presents in alpine regions of Europe, they once trembled in fear of his companion, Krampus. Krampus is a horned, demonic figure, half goat, half demon, covered in dark fur, with fangs, cloven hooves, and a long, pointed tongue. While St. Nicholas rewarded good children, Krampus dealt with the bad ones, and his methods were, let's say, more direct than a lump of coal. According to tradition, Krampus would arrive on Krampusnacht, December 5th, the night before St. Nicholas Day. He would carry chains and bells, making his presence known with a terrifying sound. When he found a misbehaving child, he had several options. He might beat them with birch branches until they bled. He might capture them in his sack and carry them away. He might drag them to his lair or straight to hell. The most disturbing part? This wasn't just a story to scare children. In many communities, men would dress as Krampus and run through the streets, chasing screaming children and adults alike. The tradition continues today in parts of Austria, Germany, and other alpine regions, where elaborately costumed Krampus performers create an atmosphere of controlled terror. Krampus represents something that modern Christmas has sanitized away: the idea that winter was a time of judgment. Behavior had consequences. The darkness held actual danger, and no amount of good cheer could protect you if you'd been deemed unworthy. Meanwhile, in ancient Rome, the winter solstice brought Saturnalia, a festival so wild, so chaotic, so completely opposite to our modern Christmas that it's almost shocking they're related at all. Saturnalia ran from December 17th to December 24th. Sound familiar? During this week, normal social order was completely inverted. Slaves became masters. Masters served slaves. Gambling was legal. Public drunkenness was encouraged. People wore their clothes backwards and cross-dressed. The usual rules didn't apply. The festival began with animal sacrifices to Saturn, the god of agriculture and time. After the blood rituals came the feasting. Massive, elaborate meals with wine flowing freely. Then came the gambling, the games, the gift-giving, and yes, the sexual license. Roman sources describe Saturnalia as a time of madness and license. The poet Catullus called it the best of days. Others described it as controlled chaos, a release valve for a rigidly hierarchical society. When Christianity became the official religion of Rome, church authorities were faced with a dilemma. Saturnalia was massively popular. You couldn't just ban it. So instead, they absorbed it. December 25th was chosen as Christ's birthday, not because there's any evidence Jesus was born then, but because it was convenient. It overlapped with existing pagan celebrations, making the transition easier for new converts. The gift-giving from Saturnalia, the feasting. Saturnalia, the idea of a special time where normal rules don't apply. Saturnalia, our Christmas is literally built on the bones of a pagan orgy. October 31st, Halloween. Today it's one of the most fun holidays of the year. Kids dress up as superheroes and princesses. We carve silly faces into pumpkins. We hand out candy and watch horror movies. It's spooky, sure, but in a safe, commercialized way. The scariest thing about modern Halloween might be the amount of sugar our kids consume. But this holiday, perhaps more than any other, has retained an echo of its truly terrifying origins, because Halloween comes from Samhain, and Samhain was the night when the boundary between the living and the dead dissolved. For the ancient Celts of Ireland, Scotland, and other parts of northern Europe, Samhain marked the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter, the darker half of the year. It fell on October 31st, and it was the most important and most dangerous night of the year. The Celts believed that on Samhain, the veil between our world and the other world became thin, so thin that spirits, fairies, and darker entities could cross over. The dead would return to visit their homes. But not all returning spirits were friendly. Samhain was mandatory. Communities were required to participate or face divine punishment, usually illness or death. The festival lasted 3 days and 3 nights, and failure to attend was considered an offense to the gods themselves. So what happened during Samhain? First, all fires in the community were extinguished, total darkness. Then, Druids, the Celtic priests, would light massive sacred bonfires using a wooden wheel to create friction and spark flames. The wheel represented the sun, and the ritual was meant to help bring it back from its winter journey. But the fires needed fuel, and not just wood. Animals, primarily cattle, were sacrificed and burned. Historical accounts describe how the Druids would smear blood on the foreheads of participants. The blood was then wiped away with wool soaked in milk, while participants laughed. A ritual whose meaning has been lost to time, but whose imagery remains disturbing. Archaeological evidence strongly suggests that human sacrifices occurred as well. Bodies have been found at ancient Samhain sites showing signs of ritual killing. The victims were likely criminals, slaves, or prisoners of war, people deemed expendable by society. They were offered to the gods to ensure protection through the dark winter months. But what about the living? How did ordinary people protect themselves when spirits walked the earth? They disguised themselves. The Celtic practice of wearing costumes on Samhain wasn't for fun, it was for survival. People would dress in animal skins and heads, transforming themselves into something other than human. The logic was simple. If evil spirits couldn't recognize you as human, they couldn't harm you. Others went further, dressing as demons and monsters themselves. If you looked scary enough, maybe the real monsters would leave you alone, or better yet, mistake you for one of their own. They would also mark their doors with animal blood, similar to the Passover tradition in Jewish culture. The blood was a ward, a sign saying, "Death has already visited here, move along." Children were dressed as demons for protection. Houses were marked with blood. And anyone foolish enough to be caught outside after dark without a disguise, they were taking their life into their own hands. This is the true origin of Halloween costumes. This wasn't about celebration, it was survival, born from a very real fear of the supernatural. And those jack-o'-lanterns lighting your porch, originally, they were carved from turnips, not pumpkins. The practice comes from an Irish legend about Stingy Jack, a man so wicked that when he died, neither heaven nor hell would take him. Condemned to wander the earth forever, Jack carved out a turnip and placed a coal from hell inside it to light his way through eternal darkness. The Irish began carving turnips with grotesque faces and placing candles inside them. These weren't decorations, they were protective talismans. The carved faces would frighten away evil spirits, while the light inside would guide lost souls away from your home. When Irish immigrants came to America during the 19th century, they discovered pumpkins, much larger and easier to carve than turnips. The tradition adapted, and the jack-o'-lantern became the Halloween staple we know today. But understanding its origin adds a different dimension, doesn't it? That cute carved pumpkin on your porch is meant to be a barrier between your home and wandering spirits. It's not welcoming, it's warning. Stay away, we're protected here. By the 9th century, as Christianity spread through Celtic lands, church authorities faced the same problem they'd had with winter solstice festivals. Samhain was too deeply rooted to eliminate, so they absorbed it. Pope Gregory III designated November 1st as All Saints' Day, also called All Hallows' Day, a time to honor Christian martyrs and saints. The night before, October 31st became All Hallows Eve. Eventually, All Hallows Eve was shortened to Halloween and finally to Halloween. The Christian holiday kept many of Samhain's external elements, the focus on death and the supernatural, the idea of honoring the dead, even some of the festival activities. But the meaning was reframed. Instead of fearing spirits and making blood sacrifices, Christians would pray for souls in purgatory and celebrate those who'd achieved sainthood. Yet the older, darker traditions never completely disappeared. They went underground, preserved in folk customs and superstitions. The belief that Halloween night was spiritually dangerous persisted for centuries. Even today, despite its commercialization, Halloween retains an edge that other holidays don't have. There's a reason horror movies are associated with this particular date, a reason we decorate with images of death and darkness, a reason the holiday feels transgressive in a way Christmas or Easter don't. Halloween remembers what it used to be, and some part of us remembers too. February 14th, Valentine's Day. The day of love, romance, and overpriced flowers. You probably picture chocolates, heart-shaped cards, romantic dinners. Maybe you think of St. Valentine, a Christian martyr who defied Roman authorities to secretly marry Christian couples. Now let me tell you about Lupercalia. In ancient Rome, mid-February was reserved for Lupercalia, a fertility festival so wild, so violent, and so sexually charged that it makes Saturnalia look tame by comparison. The festival took place at the Lupercal Cave, the legendary site where a she-wolf nursed Romulus and Remus, the founders of Rome. The celebration began with animal sacrifices. Priests called the Luperci would slaughter a goat representing sexuality and fertility, and a dog representing purification. The Luperci would take off their clothes, completely naked except for strips of goat skin. They would take the bloody knife used for the sacrifice and smear the blood across the foreheads of two young men. The blood would then be wiped away with wool soaked in milk, and the young men were required to laugh. No one knows why. The ritual's exact meaning has been lost to time. After a feast, the real ceremony began. The Luperci would cut strips from the freshly sacrificed goat's hide. These strips, called februa, which gives us the word February, were dipped in the sacrificial blood. Then, still naked or nearly so, these men would run through the streets of Rome, striking anyone they encountered with these blood-soaked strips of goat skin. But here's the truly disturbing part. Women would actively seek out these strikes. Roman women believed that being struck by the februa would increase their fertility and ease childbirth. So they would line the streets, presenting their hands, or according to some accounts, other parts of their bodies, to be ritually whipped with bloody goat hide by naked priests. This wasn't just tolerated, it was celebrated. Mark Antony participated in Lupercalia in 44 BCE while serving as consul. It was a mainstream religious festival witnessed by crowds, considered essential for the health and fertility of Rome. So how did this blood-soaked fertility ritual become the Day of Roses and Chocolates? The transformation took centuries. First, the church tried to ban Lupercalia entirely. By the 5th century, Pope Gelasius I officially forbade Christian participation in the festival. But as with other pagan holidays, the date remained significant. The church associated February 14th with Saint Valentine, though exactly which Saint Valentine is unclear, as there were at least 2 martyrs by that name executed on that date in different years. Valentine became associated with romantic love not through any historical evidence, but through medieval literature. Geoffrey Chaucer, the medieval English poet, wrote about Valentine's Day as a time when birds choose their mates. This became romanticized in courtly love traditions. By the Middle Ages, Valentine's Day had become associated with romance, love letters, and the exchange of tokens of affection. The blood was gone, the nakedness was gone, the public whippings were gone, but the date remained, and the theme, fertility and love, remained. Your Valentine's Day card, with its red hearts and white lace, those colors come directly from Lupercalia. Red represents the blood of sacrifice, white represents the purifying milk. The very symbols we use today are sanitized versions of ancient fertility magic. Now let's talk about Easter. And here we enter more controversial territory. Unlike Christmas and Halloween, where the pagan connections are well documented, Easter's pre-Christian roots are murkier and hotly debated by scholars. The name Easter likely comes from Eostre, or Ostara, a Germanic goddess of spring and dawn, mentioned by the monk Bede in the 8th century. According to Bede, the Anglo-Saxons celebrated a festival in her honor during what they called Eosterminath, the month of April. But here's the problem. Bede is our only source. No other ancient texts mention Eostre. No temples have been found dedicated to her. No prayers or hymns survive. Some scholars believe Bede may have invented her or confused a month name with a goddess name. But let's assume Eostre existed. What would her festival have looked like? Based on similar spring festivals in other Indo-European cultures, we can make educated guesses. Spring festivals universally focused on fertility, rebirth, and the return of life after winter's death. They involved lighting bonfires to encourage the sun's strength, sexual rituals to promote fertility in both humans and livestock animal sacrifices to ensure a good growing season, divination practices to predict the year's fortune. The symbols we associate with Easter, eggs and rabbits, are undeniably fertility symbols. Rabbits are famous for their prolific breeding. Eggs represent new life. Both were sacred to various spring goddesses throughout pagan Europe. But here's where the historical record gets interesting. Easter eggs appear in Christian tradition as early as the 2nd century in the Middle East, long before Christianity reached Germanic territories. Christians in Mesopotamia would paint eggs red to symbolize Christ's blood and give them as gifts. So did Christianity adopt pagan egg traditions? Or did the tradition develop independently in Christian communities and later merge with similar pagan practices? Historians genuinely don't know. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle, a blend of Christian symbolism with local spring customs, all wrapped around the historical event of Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection during Passover season. What we can say with certainty, spring festivals celebrating fertility, renewal, and the triumph of light over darkness existed across pagan Europe. When Christianity arrived, these festivals didn't disappear. They were reinterpreted. The resurrection of Christ fit naturally into existing narratives about life-conquering death, making the transition easier for converts. The pagan elements may be less clear-cut than with other holidays, but they're there, woven into the fabric of how we celebrate. December 31st at midnight. Fireworks explode. Champagne flows, strangers kiss. We count down the final seconds of the old year and celebrate the arrival of the new. It's a party, a chance to start fresh. New year, new you. But this celebration, this need to mark the turning of the cosmic wheel, is literally as old as civilization itself. And in its original form, it wasn't a party. It was a terror. The first recorded New Year's celebration comes from Babylon, around 2000 BCE. The festival was called Akitu, and it lasted 12 days during the first month of the Babylonian calendar, roughly March, April, during the spring equinox. Akitu wasn't just a celebration, it was a ritual to renew the cosmic order, to reset the relationship between gods, kings, and people for another year. Without it, chaos would reign. The festival involved elaborate ceremonies at the temple of Marduk, the supreme god. But the most fascinating and disturbing aspect was what happened to the king. On the 5th day of Akitu, the king of Babylon would be brought to the temple. He would be stripped of his crown, scepter, and royal robes, all symbols of his power. The high priest would then slap the king hard across the face and drag him by his ears before the statue of Marduk. The king had to swear he had ruled justly. He had to promise he had not sinned against the god, and he had to cry. The king's tears were essential. If he cried, it meant Marduk was satisfied and would extend his reign for another year. If he didn't cry, it was a bad sign. The slapping and ear-dragging would continue until tears appeared. This ritual humiliation of the most powerful person in the kingdom served multiple purposes. It reminded everyone, including the king, that human power was temporary and conditional. It demonstrated that even kings were subject to divine judgment. And it allowed society to symbolically start fresh, with sins confessed and order restored. When the Romans adopted January 1st as their new year, thanks to Julius Caesar's calendar reform in 46 BCE, they associated the day with Janus, the two-faced god, who could look simultaneously into the past and future. Romans would make sacrifices to Janus, offering him the blood of animals in hopes of gaining good fortune for the year ahead. They believed this day set the tone for the entire year to come, so they were careful to avoid arguments, to be generous with gifts, and to work at least a little. Idleness on New Year's Day would mean a lazy year ahead. The sacrifices to Janus were meant to secure his favor at this liminal moment, this threshold between years. Blood would be spilled, prayers would be offered, the future would be purchased with the death of animals. This pattern repeats across cultures. The Chinese New Year, one of the world's oldest continuously celebrated holidays, involves firecrackers to scare away demons and offerings to ancestors. The Nowruz celebration in Persia combined feasting with religious sacrifices. The Maya New Year involved the sacrifice of dogs thrown from pyramid temples. Every culture that developed a calendar created rituals to mark its turning. And those rituals almost always involved sacrifice, purification, and the renewal of cosmic order through divine appeasement. Our modern New Year's celebrations, with their resolutions, fresh starts, and hopeful toasts, are the sanitized descendants of these ancient rites. We've kept the symbolism of renewal and new beginnings. We've just removed the blood. So what's the pattern? What connects all these holidays? Look at the timing. Christmas falls at the winter solstice, the darkest point of the year. Halloween marks the beginning of winter, the death of the growing season. Valentine's Day and Easter celebrate spring, the return of life and fertility. New Year's marks a cosmic reset, the beginning of a new cycle. These weren't arbitrary dates. Ancient peoples chose the most liminal, most dangerous, most uncertain moments in the year to perform their most important rituals, and they all involved similar elements. Blood, sacrifice was universal. Whether animal or human, life had to be given to ensure life would continue. Every festival involved flames, bonfires, candles, burning offerings. Fire represented the sun, life, purification, and protection. Reversal. Normal social order was suspended. Slaves became masters. The dead walked among the living. Kings were humiliated. The barrier between worlds dissolved. Fear. These weren't comfortable celebrations. They were responses to genuine terror. Terror of darkness, death, winter, chaos, and divine anger. Community participation was mandatory. These weren't personal choices. Society survived by acting collectively, by performing the rituals together. Different cultures, separated by thousands of miles and centuries, developed remarkably similar traditions. The Celtic Samhain and the Mexican Dia de los Muertos both honor the dead at the same time of year. Germanic Yule and Roman Saturnalia both celebrated the winter solstice with evergreen decorations and gift-giving. Babylonian Akitu and Chinese New Year both involved ritual humiliation and demon warding. These parallels suggest something deeper than cultural borrowing. They suggest a shared human need to ritualize our fear of the unknown, to create meaning from chaos, to negotiate with forces beyond our control. Here's the uncomfortable truth. We haven't actually moved that far beyond our ancestors. We've sanitized the rituals, removed the blood, replaced sacrifice with shopping, turned fear into family-friendly fun. But we still mark these same dates. We still feel the need to celebrate, to gather, to perform rituals that connect us to something larger than ourselves. Modern Christmas still happens at the winter solstice. We still bring evergreens into our homes. We still exchange gifts. We've just forgotten why we started doing these things. Halloween has become a candy-coated commercial holiday, but we still dress our children in costumes, still light jack-o'-lanterns, still embrace imagery of death and darkness on this one night of the year. We need these holidays. We need the ritual marking of time's passage. We need the excuse to gather, to feast, to step outside normal life for a moment. But perhaps we also need the darkness. Perhaps we need to be reminded, even if only symbolically, even if only in the back of our minds, that life is fragile, that winter comes, that death is real, that chaos lurks at the edges of our ordered world. The holidays we celebrate today are compromises between our ancestors' terror and our modern comfort. We've kept just enough darkness to make them feel meaningful, while removing enough to make them safe. But on some level, we remember. The Christmas tree whispers of blood-soaked altars. The jack-o'-lantern guards against spirits we pretend not to believe in. The Valentine's heart beats with ancient fertility magic. The dark history isn't just history. It's still here, woven into the fabric of how we mark time and meaning. So this year, when you decorate your Christmas tree, remember the sacrifices made at its ancestors' roots. When your children go trick-or-treating, remember they're participating in a protection ritual against malevolent spirits. When you give your Valentine a card, remember the blood-soaked strips of goat hide. When you toast the new year, remember the kings dragged before angry gods, begging for another year of life. Our holidays are beautiful because they contain both light and darkness. Life and death, hope and fear. They remind us that humanity has always faced the darkness and found ways to survive it, even celebrate within it. The dark history of our holiday traditions isn't something to be ashamed of. It's a testament to human resilience, creativity, and the eternal need to find meaning in an uncertain world. So happy holidays. Whatever you're celebrating, wherever these traditions came from, may your winter be warm, may your dead rest peacefully, and may your new year begin without public humiliation.